Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to It's the Bearded Man podcast with your favorite and the world's favorite bearded man, Bobbbaaaay. We are here today, ladies and gentlemen, episode 10. Round of applause. We're in the double digits. We made it. 10 episodes in. Feels great. We're making some real big progress with this podcast, and it's starting to become a real thing, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys and gals are enjoying it as much as I am creating it. Today would be, I believe, day 47 of the quarantine here in Los Angeles. It's going great. It's going well, as you can see, because I've been locked inside. I'm finding use of my time by making these podcasts every week. So I'm holding myself accountable to keep creating and keep putting these out, because I know I'm letting loose when this all clears up, and I will be running around LA probably all summer doing reckless things and going to the beach and, not being able to pump out as much as I am now. So we're making the best of it. We're going to keep cruising along until then. I recently treated myself, because of all this, because of the quarantine, because I've been locked inside, I rationalized and I treated myself to an Xbox One. So let's give it a round of applause for all the gamers out there. Microsoft used to rip 360 hard body when I was a kid. And video games was a huge part of my life. Truthfully, it was a huge part of my life, and I've talked about it on other podcasts, but I don't even think people realize how big I was into gaming growing up. And kind of going to college, I just put it behind me. I was like, it's time to be a real man. It's time to be a real boy, Bobby. And I just stopped kind of playing, and then graduated, got into podcasting, started, going all in myself, knew that would be a side distraction, and honestly, just recently said, screw it. It's time to enjoy myself. So I treated myself, been ripping Call of Duty Warzone, been ripping Fortnite. I'm a little late to the party, but it feels great to just kind of put the phone down and, rip it with the boys. And if you're not a gamer, you're probably like, this guy's cooked. But it's been great. So ripping Xbox One in my free time. And I think the biggest thing that's happened in the past week since the last podcast is rest in peace to the big old beard of the bearded man. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. We trimmed it down. It is probably about 10 pounds lighter than it was a week ago when you last saw this video or listened to this podcast. And I feel great. Feel refreshed. You know what I'm saying? It looks a lot cleaner. Can actually see my neck. I can feel my chin for the first time in a long time. I don't think it's been this short in well over a year and a half, almost close to 2 years. And was thinking about it, and I was just like, you know what? I'm done doing this quarantine beard. I'm done letting this thing get disgustingly long. And it's a pain in the ass to maintenance, especially after I shower. I don't think people realize this after I shower because of the water. I have to legit scrub it dry with a towel. Otherwise, it's literally dripping water. It's disgusting, I know, but it's truthful. So now we trimmed it down quite a bit, and I feel like a new man. I feel great. I feel refreshed, and it's awesome. We got to give a quick shout out to the review of the week. This is putting us at 33 reviews. That's the Larry Bird review for this guy right here. Shout out to Jtreeforme. Don't know your full name, but love the username for Apple. He said, my man Bobbbaaaay drops nuggets of wisdom with every podcast. He has accomplished so much and makes it feel attainable for the everyday person like you and me. He is an inspiration. Also makes me wish I could grow a dope beard. Keep it up, brother. Shout out to you, brother. You know what? Maybe one day you'll be able to grow a beard. But I do appreciate you taking the time to leave a review, and I'm stoked to see and hear that you're enjoying the podcast. And one thing I want to point out, he says he makes it feel attainable for the everyday person. And honestly, that's the thing. It's like I'm so much like everyone out there. There's no difference in me than any of you listening or watching. I think it just comes down to how bad do people want to accomplish their goals, and what are they willing to do to get there. And I've been fortunate, I think, to have a mindset and to grow up in an environment where I had a roof over my head, I had food on the table, but I also had to go out there and learn from an early age. I've talked about it before, starting to work at 13, and then just a bunch of milestones along the way of my life of having a goal, having to work my ass off for a year, 2 years, 3 years to reach a goal. And so it's just been translatable to everything I do. And I really do hope that a lot of these podcasts or anything that I've put out in the past, it's just an example to people that it's just pure hard work. Like there's no backdoor, there's no secret sauce. There's There's nothing that anybody else knows that you don't know. It's simply hard work, and it can be not the most glamorous of times, but I hope that people see and hear from the stories and through a lot of this new podcast too. It's just pure hard work and putting yourself out there and believing in yourself before the world does. That's a big one right there. But I appreciate it. So if you guys and gals want to be the review of the week for next week, head to the iTunes podcast app and leave a review. All these reviews are very helpful. So thank you very much. Okay, let's get into today's podcast. Enough of the housekeeping tings. Let's get into it. Today, what I want to talk about is making choices. Is there a right or wrong decision? And I'm not talking about what am I going to have for dinner, Chipotle or In-N-Out. I'm not talking about little day-to-day decisions that don't have like an ultimate effect on where you're going with your life. I'm talking about the big-time decisions, the decisions that actually redirect where we're going with our life. And these are the decisions that I want to that is what I'm focusing on today. I'm talking about the real life choices, the choices that could be where are we going to go to college, the choices of what job should I take between either or, what passion project should I invest my time in. I know a lot of times people struggle because they have so many different ideas and they don't know which one to start with. These are decisions that we face in our life, and it can be overwhelming. It can give us anxiety. But ultimately, I hope that through this podcast today, it kind of gives people an outline of how to make the right or wrong decision, in which case there is no right or wrong, because ultimately you're the one making the decision, and whichever decision you go with is the right decision because you made it. See what I did there? That's what we're working towards. That line right there is where we're going. So, just remember as we go through this, as long as you make the decision, it will never be the right or wrong decision. Let's get into it. Enough of me talking about it. Let's get in there, ladies and gentlemen. Buckle up. You're with the bearded man, as you already know. Okay. So ways in which I approach making a choice. As I said, these are big time decisions. These aren't anything that really affecting our day-to-day. These are the big ones. First step when making a big decision for me is creating a pros and cons list. I know some people might not care about visually seeing things. They might be somebody that can just think things through in their head. But I have found it extremely, extremely beneficial to write things out and to see it on paper, to visually be able to look at it and see the pros and cons of something that we're facing. And I think it allows us to think it through from both sides. We can't be biased whether we know which way we want to go already. We need to attack it from an unbiased standpoint. So what realistically are the pros and what are the cons? And don't leave out cons because you hate knowing that it's pulling you away from actually potentially taking this opportunity or making this decision. Be real and be honest with yourself and write out a pros and cons list of how this decision can affect you. Once again, this can be, I'm trying to generalize it because I don't want to just focus on creatives, but whether it depends on what college you're going to, what job, career you take, if you have options, this is a great way to honestly figure out which way to go. And I think a great example for me as of recently was when I was taking this job with Liquid I.V. Immediately when this conversation started happening, before I even got the final offer, I wrote out on a piece of paper, actually on a notes app. There's a reason why I do notes app, or the notes in the Apple app, because I can access it from any computer or my phone, but also I just went back and found it because it's dated. And then I remember I was like, this was in October, so this is when I would have wrote it down. And there it was waiting for me. So when I was working through the idea, do I take this job with Liquid I.V. or do I not? I came up with 10 pros and I came up with 2.5 cons. I know you're like, why? How did you get 2.5? We'll get to that. I'm not going to go through all 10 pro cons. 10 pro cons. What? I'm not going to go through all pros, but I'll give you, I thought, 3 important ones. One big pro that I found with taking the job with Liquid I.V. is that I'd be working under Brandon Cohen, who is somebody that I have seen from afar. Absolute business savage, great guy. I love the energy that he's been putting out into the world since I've been, familiar with him back in August of 2018. And something that kept cycling around in my head was that this idea of get close to the sun. I've heard it from Gary Vee and a lot of big people out there. It's like if you want to be successful like a certain person, or you admire somebody that is extremely successful or doing the things you want to do or whatever, get as close to them as possible in the sense of provide them value or work for them. And I saw this as a great opportunity to get close to the son, Brandon Cohen. Another pro was it would allow me to take my skills and apply them to an incredible opportunity. So everything that I had been learning around content within the last 3 years, this would give me a place that had resources and money, and the focus would be to build something. So I saw that as a big pro. And then another pro that I had found was that it was breaking me out of the survival mode of living paycheck to paycheck. It was going to give me something stable, something that I hadn't, I could stop driving Uber, which was like the biggest, get me out of here. I want to move on to the next thing. Cons wise, there was only 2.5. One was that my content wouldn't be a top priority in my life anymore. So at this time of considering the job, I was still doing Purpose in the Youth podcast, but I was already set in stone on I'm going to put the podcast on pause because I need to think some things through, which I'll get into. Another con was that my weekday schedule flexibility isn't in my control. I would be going from driving Uber, working when I want, and being able to do whatever I want any day of the week, to then now working in an office and on company time, which to me, I was already somebody who was full of structure, and I knew I could adjust to it, but obviously it was a con to take into consideration. And then the half con was that I would have to commute to and from the office, which wasn't ideal in the beginning. It was 37 miles to and from, which in LA time it was 50 minutes inbound at 5:30 in the morning, and then it was about an hour and 20 outbound at 6:30 at night. But I gave it a half because I knew that I wouldn't be doing that for long, and that this was giving me now a reason to move to the west side, or at least closer to the office. So I told myself it'll be a short-term thing I have to do, but at some point I'll be able to move closer and not have to do the commute, in which case we did. But yeah, it was seeing this on a piece of paper helped me really start to gain an idea of, is this the right or wrong decision for me? Like, should I be taking this opportunity, or should I hold off and keep, betting on myself and hoping that something else is going to pop up in the short term? But I think what's super key is that just because the pros weighed out the cons in this instant, I knew deep down inside I could still override this. I wasn't going to just because there were more pros and cons, I wasn't going to just immediately say, yes, I have to do it because there's 10 pros and there's 2.5 cons. I still allowed myself to think it through and to sit on it and to talk to people about the opportunity. But just seeing that on paper I was like, this is definitely the right feeling. And then really thinking about it, I knew this was the right decision I had to make. So I think that even if we do the pros and cons, we still have the ability to override it. If it doesn't feel like the right fit, even though the pros might be saying you need to take this opportunity or make this decision, you still have it inside you, which we'll get into in a little bit later, that you got to be honest with yourself and you have to figure out which is the right decision. But yeah, I think seeing it visually can help just, be able to see, is this the right choice or is it not? Next thing, number 2, would be seek advice. Getting advice is like a seesaw. It can be very helpful or it can hurtful for some people. But I've always found it to be extremely beneficial to get the opinions and advice from people that I admire, that I look up to, or people that I value. And I've always took getting advice with a grain of salt, in the sense that they might see the opportunity or the situation differently than I do, and that's okay. But it can be beneficial for me to just sit there and take it in and listen and not be offended and not take it personal, but listen in from a neutral standpoint and just see what they have to say and make sure they understand. I want your honesty. I don't want you to say something that's going to back up what I think I need to do or what I want to do. I want you to be honest with me. But like I said, similarly with the pros and cons, this can be something that we can override. So if you don't, take it for what it is, if it's still something you don't agree with or something that you think is the right decision through the advice, you can still override it. But it can be beneficial to hear how somebody else views the situation from a different lens. It can be very beneficial because they're seeing it from a different lens and they can offer different advice or a different perspective that maybe you couldn't think of. A great example was obviously with this whole opportunity with Liquid I.V. That's kind of the example I'm going to use throughout this podcast. But there were, in the past year of doing Purpose in the Youth, end of 2018 all the way through 2019, there were two people that I was kind of leaning on for advice to how to monetize, how to stop driving Uber. I mean, don't get me wrong, there were tons of people around me that have been there and helpful and supportive, but there were two people that I kind of was leaning on the most, and I would say that would be one person was Reese Hopper, who was episode 97 of Purpose in the Youth. He's helped run the business and brand of a visual content creator named That One Blonde Kid, Jeremiah Davis, extremely successful. And the second person was Zach Conovar, who was episode 95 of the podcast. And he's the founder of One Day Entertainment, which is I would say a talent management company. And some of their talent includes Yes Theory, Matt Como, and a list of other people. But long story short, it was September of 2019, and I've talked about this on a previous podcast, so I won't get too into depth. But I'd just once again hitting this wall, not knowing what to do. I reached out to Zach, scheduled a meeting with him, went to his office, and I pretty much whiteboarded my entire life with him. One of his team members, Kate Ward, another person, Bryce Perry, and we sat there and we worked through everything, like how much money am I making a week through Uber, what Purpose in the Youth, how many plays am I getting on the audio, visual, how many followers on Instagram, how many followers here, all this. It literally whiteboarded my entire life, and I believe I still have pictures of it on my phone. And so, there were tears were shed, hugs were given. I mean, it was a very emotional but honest whiteboard session, and it was something that I needed. And there were two big takeaways from it. Objective one was find a way to get out of driving Uber immediately. Find a way that you can make money doing something that is going to hone in on your skills. Driving around aimlessly wasn't helping me get sharper at content or anything. It had helped me improve my communication skills, but to a certain point, it just wasn't helping me. And then objective two was consider rebranding the podcast and taking it from a different approach. And those were the two big objectives leaving. And when I left, I knew, one, I felt restored of hope. I felt like, okay, I can get through this. I know what I need to do now. I just need to take it from a different approach. But I also knew deep down inside, I could not take this advice. Like, I respect and I appreciate the perspective, but maybe this isn't what I feel like is the right decision. Maybe I need to take it from a different approach. So I knew deep down whether I listened to them or not was totally up to me, but it was worthwhile, and it gave me hope that I could still pivot and find a way to, make a living doing what I wanted to do. So what I do, I prioritize finding a way to make money other than Uber. That was my number one goal. And so you want to talk about luck, timing. All those things play into factor, but literally 3 weeks after that conversation is when I got the conversation started happening with Liquid I.V. So it felt crazy timing because I was already debating, do I get out of driving Uber? Is this the right fit? I don't know. And then boom, the Liquid I.V. opportunity kind of came around. But like I said, it was still on me to decide, is this something that, do I agree with them? Do I believe the best thing I need to do is find a way to make money other than Uber, or should I just keep betting that at some point this Uber thing will run its course and I'll get out of it? But all I know is that advice helped me realize a lot of things, and if it wasn't for Zach Conovar, Kate Ward, Bryce Perry, and then eventually Brandon Cohen offering me the opportunity, I wouldn't be in the position that I am today, which is, as I'll get into, really still, I'm at the peak of my life and career, mentally, physically, spiritually, everything. But I always think it's really important to approach people, ask for their advice, like literally knock on the door of the people that you look up to or you value their opinion, and ask them, if you were in my shoes, what would you do based on the situation you're in? And listen to them and take it for what it is. And if you think the advice is good, run with it. If not, take it with a grain of salt and keep betting on yourself and believing in what you need to do next. Next step, got to be honest with myself. honesty, right? Most important part of making any decision is about me being honest with myself. So I can seek advice, I can write out the pros and cons, but I need to look inward. I need to ask myself, first of all, what is my gut reaction? What I should be doing? Do I feel like this is the actual best decision? Do I feel like leaving Uber to take a job, which means I can't focus on my content as my number one priority? Does that feel like the right decision? Am I doing this? Am I making this decision because, X person said I should? Or am I doing it because I know, honestly, deep down inside, this is what I want to do? Am I doing it because I want to make somebody else happy? Or am I making a decision because I want to make myself happy? After seeking advice and creating the pros and cons list, I was very honest with myself and just laid it out all in front of me. Truly was an opportunity of a lifetime to jump on board with Liquid I.V. back in October of 2019. I had previously tried other ways of making money outside of the podcast that just weren't successful. So it wasn't like I wasn't trying. I had been throwing a bunch of ideas at the wall. It wasn't working. I had racked up close to $10K in credit card debt. So that was starting to, get to me. I had kept my head down for literally 3 years of just pumping content as much as I possibly could. I put it all on the line for Purpose in the Youth. I punted a lot of things just to really see, did this thing have legs or not? And I just felt like it was time to make the change. It felt like, I've heard other creators talk about the 3-year rule of, give yourself 3 years to really see if something is the right fit for you. And I had passed that 3-year rule, and I was also getting burnt up. But I knew no matter which decision I made, I knew that Purpose in the Youth had got me there, and that by no means was it a failure. By no means was there any regret. I knew that podcast had been the vehicle to get me to where I was. And so I think it's just, we have to be honest with ourselves, which isn't always easy to do, but is extremely important. We are the ones living with the consequences of our decisions, our choices. So we have to do what's best for us, not because it'll make somebody else happy, but because we do it because it'll make us happy. We are the ones that have to live with these decisions. We're the ones that actually have to go out there and follow that choice that we make. It's so easy for other people from the outside looking in to give advice or say, go do that one thing. But ultimately, it's up to us, and we have to live with it. Next step, make a decision, right? This is the part. We have to make the decision. At this point, we should have a really good understanding of what we need to do, because we've created the pros and cons list. We seeked advice. We've been honest with ourselves. And now it's time to just go for it. It's time to finally step up to the plate and swing. And whether it's choosing the college you want to attend, choosing which career you want to go with, whatever it might be, trust your gut and follow your heart. Whichever decision you end up making, stick to it. Believe it. That's the right decision. If you believe it is, then you got to go for it. And it's just like when that final offer came in with Liquid I.V., I had done everything. The pros and cons, seeking advice, being honest with myself about how this opportunity could change my life. And I felt right. The pros outweighed the cons, 10 to 2. Everything inside me was saying yes. To me, it felt like a no-brainer. And so the way I look at it is, so long as the decision that we make is ultimately what we feel is right and is the best fit for us, then that's all that matters. There is no right or wrong decision, because ultimately it is our choice. And as long as we are making the choice, it'll always be the right decision. Which way it goes, and ultimately if something flops, we're going to get into that now. But as long as you're making the decision and it's coming from you inside, that's all that matters. Last step is look forward. So like I was saying, whatever decision we do make, I think it is extremely important that we continue to look forward. We have to keep looking forward. Super important. We do not allow ourselves to think about the what ifs, because what is done is done. It's just like that. There's no point in thinking, well, what if I had done X, or I should have gone this way? Don't waste your time and energy, because it's not getting us forward. We're not making any progress thinking about it. Now it's a matter of making more decisions and choices based on the decisions that we've made. So now that we've made a choice, we have to just keep making choices. It's this continuous, it's just like we're moving. We can gradually keep moving forward. We can kind of pivot to the left and pivot to the right, but we can't go back. We have to keep moving forward. And it's like, as I talked in the last episode, the optimistic lens of positive Pete and the negative Nancy from the pessimistic lens. No matter what our choice, no matter where the choice takes us, it's ultimately, we have to look at it from a positive lens, an opportunity to grow. And we have to keep reminding ourselves that. What's super interesting about this topic today, diving in for the podcast, is that tomorrow, Monday, April 27th, actually marks my 6-month anniversary at Liquid I.V. And it's crazy because I was working through this topic and idea yesterday, and then when I woke up this morning to really dive into it, it wasn't until I got to this part, looking forward and thinking about it and reflecting on it, that I was like, wow, tomorrow actually marks 6 months with the company, and that's crazy. That's unbelievable. And I still feel like I made the right decision. I still feel like I made the right decision. I mentally have never been so clear in my life. Financially, I've been able to get caught up on credit card debt, which has been so relieving. Physically, I'm getting there. Dad bod summer 2020 is upon us. I'm going to come in hot. 5 years in the running. Hit me up. The balance of my life has shifted tremendously. Ripping Xbox now because of, being locked indoors. But even before that, before coronavirus hit the U.S., I was really starting to hit a stride of like enjoying myself, going to the beach, going to, different bars and just meeting people. And I was definitely on a right new track. But like I said, I've had plenty of moments in the last couple weeks, couple months where I was like, man, this was the right decision that I made. But, for instance, going to Super Bowl weekend or like some of these big things that have happened or just like some crazy, crazy experiences. But ultimately, when this coronavirus happened, that's when I knew I made the right decision. And I didn't know that this was going to happen, right? But it has been an incredible moment for me to reflect and be like, man, I am so fortunate that I got out when I did, because I'm very lucky to have a job that is financially keeping me afloat while, things are happening in the world. And I feel grateful because I know that there are people out there struggling. And I just want to express a moment of gratitude towards Liquid I.V. because it's woo, Liquid I.V. Clap it up for you. But even in those self-doubt moments or question moments where we ask ourselves, but did I make the right choice? What's done is done. And you got to look at that from a positive lens, because the more time and energy we spend thinking about the past, it's only holding us back from making progress. And like I said, so long as you made the choice, so long as I made the choice, it will always be the right choice because we made it. We didn't choose it because somebody else told us to do it. We didn't choose it because it was going to make somebody else happy. We chose it because we felt it was the best thing to do. And as long as we did that based on in the moment with how things were lined up, the pros and the cons, the advice we seeked in that moment, did we feel like we made the best right choice? Yes. Then you can look at it in the future and go, and dwell on it because something now you didn't know back then, or something happens that you couldn't have predicted. As long as you made the right choice, or I made the right choice, it'll always be the right choice. So now it's about focusing on the next choice in front of you and taking it from there and keep moving forward and keep moving forward. All right, so in closing, throughout our life, we are faced with choices and decisions that will redirect where our life is headed. There's no need to get overwhelmed by this. Just embrace it as an adventure into the unknown, ladies and gentlemen. We're going on an adventure into the unknown. Pack your backpack. It's going to be fun. Nobody will have the answer except for us. That is so true. Nobody out there knows the answers. We have the key inside of us, ladies and gentlemen. Believe it. To help us figure out which way to go with that key, I think it is important to remember this. Create a pros and cons list, right? Write it down and see it visually. Which side weighs more, and let that give us an idea of which direction we should go based on the choice that we have in front of us. Next would be seek advice. Reach out to the people you trust and ask for their opinion. Listen to them and hear what they have to say. Take it with a grain of salt. Just because they think you need to do X doesn't mean you have to do it, but listen to what they have to say, because they might see the situation or the opportunity from a different perspective, which you might scratch your head and think, wow, I never thought of it that way. It can be extremely beneficial. Next would be honest with ourselves. We have to be honest with ourselves and look at the mirror and ask, what feels right? What do I think is the right choice? And if so, do I think that is the decision I need to make? After that, it's time to make that decision, ladies and gentlemen. We have to trust our gut and follow our heart. Our what? We have to trust our gut and follow our heart. We need to make a choice that we feel best suits us. We feel it's the best decision, not because somebody else is telling us we need to do it. We feel it's the best decision. And lastly, after we make that decision, we need to keep looking forward. No matter where the choice takes us, we must keep moving forward and not look back. Based on the moment, if it felt right, you keep moving forward. You keep making decisions based on what is in front of us. Wherever that decision or choice takes us, it will lead us to another choice and another choice and another choice. You keep moving forward, but so long as you made the decision or the choice, it will always be the right choice because you made it. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. I hope you did. I hope it's changing your perspective on choices because our life is full of them, as we all know. But ultimately, I really do hope that people take away that this idea that there is no right or wrong. It's totally choice and it's totally us. And looking at it from this lens and this perspective, it'll help us continuously move forward so that even if things don't go the way we planned it, we know that we made a past decision that felt right in the moment, and therefore there's no time to dwell. There's no time to sit around and complain that we shouldn't have done X. What's done is done. It's always about just keep moving forward. If you enjoyed this podcast, please smash that like button on YouTube. Drop a comment. It's very helpful for us. If you enjoyed listening on the audio, screenshot this episode, post it to your IG story, tagging me at Bobbbaaaay. That's BL, 3 B's, 4 A's, and a Y. And if you really did enjoy the podcast, leave us a podcast review on the iTunes podcast app with one sentence, one word, totally up to you. But the good thing is that maybe you will be the review of the week next week. Ladies and gentlemen, that's 10 episodes in the books. Once again, let's give it a round of applause. 10 weeks, slowly but surely, we're building this podcast into something great. The world just doesn't know it yet. If you guys and gals have a topic you'd like me to cover next, you know where to find me. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, at Bobbbaaaay. Hit me up, and I'll gladly take it into consideration. Hope you guys and gals are healthy and safe in the world. Keep pushing the envelope. Keep utilizing all this downtime with the coronavirus. I know everyone is sick of it, but if you haven't been affected by this directly, or you don't have family that's been affected by this, take a moment to appreciate it. Stay safe, stay indoors, and do your best to make the best of all this downtime. We'll see you soon. It is the world's favorite bearded man on It's the Bearded Man podcast. Your favorite and the world's favorite bearded man, Bobbbaaaay. See you next time. See ya.